Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance, where people conform to the letter but not the spirit of a request. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy some malicious compliance. Busy principal finally gives me a schedule, so I follow it to the letter, at the expense of my students. This happened about a year and a half ago when I was working at an elementary school as a tutor and mentor for ages 9 through 12, so about 4th grade through 6th grade. When I got hired by the group I was working for, who worked in partnership with the schools and the school district, my boss took me to meet the principal the first day classes. She was nice but really busy. Like, even as we were having a meeting, she kept having to get up and step out of the office to tell the secretary something needed to be done, or something had been done, and then checking her email, taking calls, etc. What I left her office with wasn't much, just my training from my boss, and the promise from the principal that she'd give me a schedule within a week or two. In the meantime, just check with the teachers in the morning, do the things that were permanent tasks I had to do for my job that were dictated by my boss, and try to get to know the kids I'd potentially be working with most. I was with the older kids, 5th graders, and spent a lot of time in one classroom, pulling kids into the hall one by one, or small groups to tutor them in math. 2 weeks go by, I still don't have a schedule. And I can't even get in to ask the principal for even an update. So I work with the teacher to get a general idea of what I should do, and have a sort of loose guideline for what I do. Certain kids come out with me first, so I can do homework check and help with comprehension from yesterday's lesson. Then, I take a group that need more student-specific teaching to explain in a way to help them specifically. Then, the last group was only 2 students, one of which just needed to be away from others to work quietly in the hall after the lessons. The other, though, was a kid that his only problem was that he needed a lot of practice before he could remember how to do something. So I mostly just went out and did pre-chosen practice problems with him for a good 30 minutes before his class goes to lunch. So months go by, and we're like more than halfway through the school year. I've fallen into my own routine, working well with my students, and most of them are doing a lot better in the subjects, again mostly math, that I'm working on with them. It was about this time that the principal finally gives me a schedule, and it's terrible. Like, I'm jumping back and forth between classrooms, barely in most of them for more than 10 minutes, which if you've worked in a school, you know is barely enough time to get a student started on something, much less help them through one worksheet. And she had set my 15-minute break, which had to be offered since it was mandatory for the district, to be at the beginning of my usual hour and a half with the 5th grade class. And the 30-minute lunch break, this also mandatory for the district, to be at the end of my usual time with the 5th graders. And I don't mean I take my 15 break, do an hour and a half of math, then go take my lunch break. I mean, when I would normally start math, she had my 15-minute break. Then I end up only doing an hour of math before going to lunch, when I would normally do extra math practice with my last group. First thing I do after getting my schedule is point this out. Wouldn't it be better for me to have an earlier break and a later lunch? I even explained why, since what I was doing was working so well with these kids so far. As the principal, you'd think that she would understand. Nope, she tells me that she can't move my break, since she wants me in the listed classrooms during all the other offered break periods. And she wanted me outside supervising recess during all the later staff lunch periods, so I had to follow the schedule. Before I could try and negotiate, she walked off and I couldn't get in to talk to her. I tried the schedule that first day I had it, and it was not working. Teachers kept sending me away because I didn't have enough time or their classes just didn't need the extra help. I ended up just standing around most of the time. By the time math with 5th grade rolled around, I was basically back to what I had been doing. I'd basically just spent a good hour and a half doing nothing already, so I didn't need a break. When my new lunchtime rolled up, I figured that I could just eat a quick snack before heading to supervise outside, like I had been all year. And I kept repeating this for a couple of days until the principal finds out I haven't been following her schedule. She came storming into the hallway, told my two last group of kids to go back into the classroom, and then proceeds to chew me out right there in the hall. You have a schedule for a reason. You can't just do what you want. Your breaks are mandatory. If you don't follow the schedule, I'll report you to your boss for insubordination. Stuff like that. You get the gist. By the end of the scolding, I'm angry. I figured if she wants me to follow the schedule, then fine, I'll follow the schedule. I know that the students are gonna suffer, and it's going to suck, but that's gonna be on the principal. So I spend the rest of the day following her schedule to the letter. It goes fine the rest of that first day, but I know the next was going to be a nightmare. See, the important part to this is the 2 5th graders I did math with, but there were tons of things that I did before my schedule that I couldn't do after I started following the schedule. Like, come in at 7 AM to make copies of homework packets for teachers, write down notes for tomorrow, review that day's lesson plan for math, or leave after 5 PM because I'm helping grade papers, clean up classrooms, after leading an afternoon club. Well, the schedule said I arrive at 8:30 AM, leaving at 2:30 PM on days without clubs, and 4 PM on days with clubs. So that day, I come in at exactly 8:30, and already I can see the chaos. Teachers are backed up at the copier because they don't have time to run back and forth between the staff room and their classrooms in the morning. I grab my keys, put away my bag, and start heading towards my first classroom. Teachers who haven't used the copier since the beginning of the year are asking me for help, but I just apologize and point to the principal's schedule, which was now taped to my locker. I head to my class. I'm bouncing around, doing basically nothing, but run back and forth between the classrooms and the copier. It's better than standing around, but even then, all the teachers I ran copies for were behind. And with our one copier, 10 to 20 minutes in those classrooms was not enough to make 15 copies of one homework packet, much less 25 to 30 copies of a homework packet, 3 different worksheets, and 2 sheets of helpful notes that most teachers needed. When my break rolled up, I went straight to the staff room. I told the 5th grade teacher I did math with what was happening the day before, just to be on the safe side, and so she would at least be prepared. By the time I got back to the classroom, my first main group of kids was absolutely lost. Instead of checking and correcting their work with me, they were grading their homework with the rest of the class. I pulled them out into the hall, did the last few homework problems with them, and noticed they went from the general 70 to 80% to well below 50%. I then pulled out my second group, which went about the same as before, though I did have to leave a bit early to get to the staff room for my lunch break. The staff that shared my lunch with me were confused, and I ate a sandwich in like 5 minutes, and just sat around for the other 25. After that, I went through the rest of my day, to the letter, and left at exactly 2:30, or 4 depending on what my schedule said. Now, you're probably wondering what the problem is. Sure, teachers behind on papers, a small group of kids confused, can't be that bad, right? Well, remember my 2 last 5th graders? The quiet one and the one who needed extra practice? Well, the quiet one was part of the behavioral program, basically the special education of elementary school. He had a problem where if there was too much noise, he had a meltdown, which was why he was in the hall with me when they actually started on their homework and problem sets. The kid who needed extra practice, he wasn't in the behavioral program since they ran out of room, but he had anxiety. Like, if something goes wrong, he shuts down and can't function anxiety. Day 1 of me on my new schedule, they were confused, but they could do 1 day of routine and be relatively okay. Day 2 was quite a bit harder, but their teacher had a couple tricks to help. Day 3, things got bad, and by day 4. On day 4, my quiet kid had a meltdown. He spent all of his usual math time with me screaming, just random noises, and through a desk. The practice kid, he shut down. He gave up, laid on the floor because he couldn't remember anything they'd learned over the past 3 days. The teacher had to call the busy principal out of a meeting to get the boys out of the classroom. And then the principal had them in her office the rest of the day. And then the next Monday. After 3 days of having these kids melt down and having them in her office, the principal decided to send them to a behavioral program room instead. For the next week and a half. I'm not sure how to describe what happened every single day when she did that. It was utter chaos. It was like you got an animal safe and calm, and with other safe and calm animals, and then got 2 as crazed out as possible and locked them in a cage together. After only a couple of days, the behavioral program's teacher was about ready to lose it. 20 kids with special behavioral needs, and adding 2 kids that weren't usually there to her generally calm kids? I've never heard exactly what happened, but apparently one student had started to bite anyone who came close. 3 kids were constantly screaming, and 1 kid put a hole in the wall with only his head. After 3 weeks, I was pulled into a meeting with the principal and my boss. I told my boss at the beginning about the schedule issue, months before I got one, and kept her updated. Up until I told her my concerns about the schedule I actually got. She had told me to just go along with it, since there was really nothing we could do if this was really what the principal wanted. My boss was now absolutely on my side after hearing what had happened. We had a long sit down, and we had the principal's full attention as I told her the mock schedule I had before that had worked, and a couple of things from my new schedule that were actually working. In the end, I got my own lunch period, got to eat by myself, and returned mostly to what I had been doing before. The kids got back on track after a little while and didn't need to be held back, thank God. Still, it was the worst 3 weeks of a normally very pleasant job. She doesn't sound busy to me. I think she sounds more lazy than anything. Like, oh, I've got loads of meetings. Like, I don't believe that. We should leave each other alone? Sure thing. This is fresh from a couple of hours ago. Friends and I were on a trip, kids included. There are 6 families, including one I don't know. Friend of a friend. Absolutely no problem. I'll call the mum Lady Snowflake because that's how much I appreciate her. Anyway, midway during our trip, I accidentally dropped a bag of toys. My child was asleep on my back, so I was quite clumsy picking up. Some friends who weren't busy dealing with the kids helped pick up, while a ball rolled to Lady Snowflake's feet. Mutual friend said, "Hey, blank, can you please kick that back?" She knows I don't mind, and kicking it back was the easiest way anyways. Lady Snowflake literally replied, "I don't know her, me, so I think we should leave each other alone." And that was it. Mutual friend muttered, "Ah, for God's sake," and fetched the ball for me. Later, we were at the lakeside, and I had a nice hammock set up. Lady Snowflake's kids got tired and began throwing tantrums. She tried to get them into the stroller without success. Meanwhile, my child was chilling on the hammock enjoying her berries. Mutual friend came to me and said Lady Snowflake wanted to ask if she and her kids could borrow our hammock for a while. I could hear one of her kids scream, "I want it! I want it!" I said she wanted us to leave each other alone, and I will respect that. Then I joined my kid and had a nice iced tea. That right there is how you make new friends, you know? If you don't know them, you can't talk to them. You have to know them to be able to, like, how do you talk to new people? What? Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.